Good morning. I'm Perry Brindley, the Associational Missions Strategist for the Buncombe Baptist Association. We're delighted to join you today, and we're very grateful that we get to have a part of your ministry. And so there'll be 4 sessions that we're going to be focused our attention on reopening, a plan to reopening, and answering some questions about the reopening process or the relaunching process. We're using local pastors from our Buncombe Baptist Association churches because they know our context, even though each one has a different context. They know our county, and they know the greatest needs in the county that they serve. And so it's my privilege today, in session 1, to introduce 3 pastors, lead pastors of 3 of our congregations in Buncombe County. First, let me introduce to you Branton Burleson, the pastor of Grace Baptist Church in West Asheville. So let's begin this real quickly. And I wanted to ask Branton some initial questions here for session 1. Branton, have you given any thought about preparation of the facility when we are ready and able to reopen?
Yeah, a lot of these conversations are a work in progress, probably still for a lot of us. We're still having conversations as a staff and with our deacon of facilities and my fellow pastor at the church. But I think right now we envision probably a lot of the things that you might see when you go into a grocery store. Having directional arrows of which way to move, and so that we can keep the flow of pedestrian traffic moving in one direction, and have designated locations for entering and exiting, so that we can avoid people passing in opposite directions. Certainly, I think probably some of the common sense things that a lot of us are thinking about are hand sanitizer stations, if those resources can still be located.
Yeah.
So those are a few of the things that we're talking about right now that probably we see even in our grocery stores.
Great.
Yeah.
Have you given any thought to how you're going to deal with the restricted numbers?
Yeah, so I think the way we're going to do this is going to involve actually using home groups or small groups for probably a long time. I would imagine churches, others like ours, will have difficulty figuring out how to do social distancing in their facility.
Yeah.
Even, depending on the size of your congregation, the size of your facility, 6 feet is very difficult when you think about what that would look like in a sanctuary. So we were actually developing a plan that is in phases, in part to coincide, if we can, with state and government phases, so that there's not confusion between the state and the church on these matters. We're probably going to continue our live streaming for, probably indefinitely, and also encourage our folks to continue watching the live stream. And then on a couple of Sunday evenings a month, we're going to have folks come together in numbers of 10 or less in a home and discuss the sermon, do sermon review discussion. And then as the phases progress, we'll rotate in 1 or 2 of those home groups in numbers of probably 15, 20 at a time, so that they can distance, and also if visitors were to show up, we could have enough room for them as well.
Great.
Yeah.
When your congregation is comfortable moving back inside the building, understanding that the numbers will be restricted, talk about cleaning before and after that gathering of worship.
Yeah, our situation may be a little unique in that we rent to another church as well. So we have 2 churches that we have to think about in our context. We have a church that meets in the evenings at 5 o'clock, and so we'll be meeting in the mornings. We have volunteers that rotate in cleaning our facility. They have an individual that's designated as a custodian. So I imagine, we did some of this even before the pandemic, we would clean up after ourselves, after our service, and go down and wipe down pews and clean up areas. I'm sure we'll do that still, but be focused on high-touch areas, doorknobs and seating areas, to make sure those are sanitized, and then I'm sure the other congregation will do the same.
Great. hymn books?
Well, we're actually working on using our screen. In fact, we have one center screen right now, but we're actually in the process of upgrading our audio-visual capabilities at this time, which we were discussing doing anyway, but we're going to probably rely more on now 2 screens that we're installing in our sanctuary.
Okay. Thank you very much, Branton, for joining us for session 1, and we look forward to carrying this out for 4 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm joined here today by Clark Henderson, who is a long-tenured pastor at the New Bridge Baptist Church in North Asheville. Let's begin by talking about the thoughts that you have concerning preparing your facility for people to gather again.
Sure. Well, I don't know how long we've been closed up, maybe a month and a half already, and that provided for us at New Bridge a big opportunity to have people already come in. We started with our nursery, and we went through and did a deep clean with all the toys and all the cribs and the playpens and such, and all the Sunday school rooms, and the kitchen was another area where we think, now's a good time to do a deep cleaning so that we can let our church folks know and have the confidence that when we get back together, in whatever form it'll be, that they can feel safe coming back into the Lord's house. There's a lot of fear out there now, and a lot of people casting that fear, and God wants a church to be a safe place to gather together. So we've already been working on that as far as preparing the cleanliness of the church, and which will include also having the hand sanitizers at the front door. All the entrances, we're going to have hand sanitizers, and we'll have the mask if people choose to wear them, and we'll also have gloves if people choose to wear them. So we're trying to get it cleaned up and ready to go in that sense.
Okay. How do you sense in conversations that you're having with your church leadership that you'll deal initially with the restricted numbers?
And it all depends on what those numbers are. From a big picture, if our numbers could be moved up to, let's say, 50 people or less, we still could not do a service inside. We would still continue to do a drive-in Sunday morning service. We can accommodate a lot of people in a drive-in service, but 50 people would make it a little tough. If we get up to 100 people or less, then we're looking into the possibility of doing 2 services. And in the middle of doing the 2 services, we would look at going inside our sanctuary and marking off our pews for social distancing. As a matter of fact, little red pieces of tape on top of the back of the pews every 6 feet, marking them catty corners so that family units can sit and feel safe doing it. We trust the Lord with all this, and we want to do everything we need to healthcare wise, but ultimately we want our folks to feel like, that God's got a plan and this is the place to be. So we will work in those avenues of getting people distanced apart in the sanctuary. When it comes to Sunday school, we're going to do the same thing. We're already renumbering all of our Sunday school classes, our nursery, our children's church areas, with the 6 feet distancing order in line, and trying to figure out how many people can each classroom hold. So going forward, when we find out what these numbers can be, we'll try our best to put the people in the right classes so they'll feel safe and so we can still go on with ministry. Now, with all that said, nursery's a little bit different. We want parents to feel safe about bringing their kids to the nursery, so what do? And we're still dealing with that, but right now we're looking at issues of using multiple rooms for nurseries with individual care, which will take a little bit more people, but if we provide the nursery, we'll do that. But I suspect the first service back inside, if we can have 100, we'll probably have all families together in the sanctuary.
Thank you for joining us today for session 1, as we approach our challenge for the days ahead on reopening or relaunching. This week, joining me today is Lonnie Ray, who is the senior pastor at Gracie Branch Baptist Church in East Asheville. So Lonnie, thank you for joining us. Let's just talk a little bit first about how you see the need to prepare the facility to receive people.
Yeah, well, let me begin first of all just saying thank you for the privilege to be able to be in front of you and to share and be a part of this process. And we are living in special days. These are exciting days. I believe that God is doing something beyond what we could ever imagine. I really believe that part of this is putting people watching services online that they would never have seen, and the gospel's going out in a greater way than ever before. And I think it's an exciting day to be a pastor and to be a part of the church and what's happening. As far as preparing our facility, we are blessed to have a team that we pay to come in and who clean our building. I had opportunity to talk to the owner of that yesterday, and what we're doing now versus what we're going to do in months ahead. Two totally different things. Yeah. And so we will definitely be increasing those responsibilities. But at the same time, I think it's also an opportunity for us as a church to implement the body so that people can become part of the process. And it's not just something we're paying for, but it's also building teams around the needs that are already here. So right now, tonight, I'm having a meeting with our leadership team, and part of that is putting the cleaning team together that will, for the next month or 2 months, independently be taking certain sections in our church and cleaning those based on standards that we're going to set aside, a higher standard.
Great.
Yeah.
Social distancing, we all know that that's going to be necessary even with restricted numbers. Tell us how you see dealing with the restricted numbers whenever we're able to gather.
So not knowing how the governor's going to open things up, I put together a strategy, and the strategy basically allows for 4 phases for us as a church. So starting this weekend will be phase 1, which is we're back in the auditorium. We've been in a studio for the last 5 weeks. And so we're going to start back in the auditorium, and we're going to do services live in the auditorium. And then as the governor allows, or even as Buncombe County allows, we'll start allowing people to come into the building in those limited numbers, each week building upon the last week. And Lord willing, by the time we get to June, we'll be in what I would consider our 3rd phase, which is fully opened. Our last phase is our Freedom Sunday celebration. So when we're totally back, children's ministry's up and going, we're going to have a Freedom Sunday.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Great. Cleaning, of course, you've not mentioned the possibility of what you perceive to be multiple services. So the cleaning between those services might not be relevant to your context.
Correct. We only have 1 service, but from week to week is when these teams will come in and really clean the facility. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today on Monday, May the 4th. Join us tomorrow on Tuesday as we continue to talk about reopening and what it should look like.